Welcome to Across Africa. I'm Yenali, and this week, France 24 is on the ground in Sudan. Our reporters take us to Khartoum's breadbasket to hear how farmers there feel about the coup and the protest movement rocking the country. Entrepreneurs in the Central African Republic seek ways to ramp up cassava production. The root vegetable is a staple in the country, but supplies are dwindling since the pandemic. And we take a look at the human cost behind Abidjan's new metro system. Though improved infrastructure is on the horizon, uprooted residents say they have nowhere to go. We start in Sudan. Political uncertainty and protests continue to rock the country weeks after a coup d'etat there. Our reporters are in the capital. They visited the island of Tuti in the heart of the city. It's known as Khartoum's breadbasket, as farmers use the Nile's water to grow fruit and vegetables for the capital's inhabitants. Karim Yayawi and Abdallah Malkawi went to find out how people there view the military takeover and the renewed protests.
A hub of greenery surrounded by the Nile, against a backdrop of skyscrapers. Ali was born on the island and has been farming here for decades. The country's economic crisis hasn't spared these farmers. It was the army's justification for toppling Abdallah Hamdok's transitional government last month, but locals aren't convinced that things will change.
السوداني بطبعه حامي شوية. عبد الله حمدوك مده فرصة عشان نصلح ولدونا نحن فرصة عشان نحكم عليه.
On the neighbouring plot, women from Darfur are busy harvesting salad. Also from Darfur, this young man arrived in Tuti in 2019 after the revolution.
ودي صعب شديد يعني زي ما شاف السوداني بطلع بيطالب بحقه وانا بضرب بطالب بحقنا.
Even strongman Omar al-Bashir was unable to cow the island's close-knit community, where people all know each other by name. They successfully saw off an attempt to turn their fields into luxury hotels and consider themselves hardy people. But today, some are pessimistic.
حاليا أي اتفاق يحصل بين العساكر والمدنيين حيكون هش أكتر. لأنه المدنيين حيفقدوا الشارع والعساكر نوعا ما فقدوا أصلاً.
Nama is an activist heavily involved in the protest movement. She's convinced that civilians can take control of the country's future.
ما حنقف من نطلع الشارع، ما حنقف من الاحتجاجات. الانتفاضة الأخيرة دي أدت الناس أمل إنه يعني الدكتاتور الكبير في 4 شهور اتمسح.
With a new bridge built in 2019, the island has become a hub for people to relax on the beach and enjoy the sunset. But while one day ends, these islanders hope that their revolution is only just beginning.
Next, the French army has handed over a military base in Tessalit to the Malian army. It's a part of President Emmanuel Macron's partial withdrawal and redeployment of his forces in the Sahel region. Plans that have fueled tensions with the Malian junta that's accused Paris of abandoning the country to jihadists. French troops have already left a base in Kidal and are preparing to hand over Timbuktu too.
Continuing to scale down its operations in northern Mali, the last French soldiers left the Tessalit military base on Sunday. It was then permanently transferred to the Malian army in a process described as controlled and closely coordinated by the French armed forces. French authorities also said the MINUSMA, the UN's peacekeeping mission in Mali, would maintain a force of several hundred troops in Tessalit. The move was part of a wider French strategy to downsize its military presence in the region from 5,000 troops down to around 2,500 over the next 2 years. Emmanuel Macron made the announcement in June, shortly after Mali experienced its second coup in a year. Relations between the two countries have since soured, amid reports Bamako was looking to hire Russian mercenaries to assist with security issues, and as Mali's transitional prime minister, Choguel Maïga, accused Paris of abandoning the country. After withdrawing from the Kidal base in October, and from Tessalit a month later, French forces are now expected to leave the Timbuktu military base, their last one in the country's north, as they look to refocus their efforts in central Mali.
Let's head over to the Democratic Republic of Congo now. The Muslim community in the northeastern city of Beni say they're increasingly faced with stigmatization. This says the ADF, a militia with alleged links to the Islamic State group, continue to carry out attacks on civilians. Muslims complain that they're being lumped together with terrorists while they too have been under threat. Last May, 2 imams were killed in Beni and many others have had to flee the region. Clément Bonnereau and Juliette Dubois sent us this report.
On the 1st of May, this woman's husband, Imam Ali Amin, was murdered during prayer time in Beni. 6 months later, the attacker's identity remains unknown, but authorities have blamed the ADF, a militia accused of links with the Islamic State group.
My husband had been receiving threats, and yet he remained in Beni. He always refused to leave. He wasn't afraid. I don't understand why he was killed. He got along with everyone.
The Imam regularly condemned the massacres committed by the ADF in his preaching. Yet 3 weeks before his death, he was briefly detained by authorities, which his family says was on suspicion that he was collaborating with the rebels. At Beni's central mosque, where he used to lead prayers, shock has turned into bitterness.
Muslims are being stigmatized. We're being labeled as members of the ADF, and people accuse us of being accomplices to those who attack us.
We feel abandoned by the authorities. We want to be safe like everyone else in this city.
To protect their community, some worshippers now volunteered to guard the entrance to the mosque. Security has been tightened.
We built a new fence and we reinforced the gate with this chain.
Since the death of Imam Ali Amin and the killing of another preacher in late May, Muslims have begun to speak out against the stigma they face.
Mpendwa msikilizaji, karibu tena kwenye kipindi chenu kipendelevu Sauti ya Uislamu.
This Imam hosts a weekly radio show which aims to fight prejudice against his community.
We cannot be silent. We have to tell non-Muslims that everything they hear about Islam is not true. Islam respects the dignity of every human being.
In recent months, at least 7 imams have fled Beni in North Kivu, fearing for their lives.
Now, cassava is a staple food in the Central African Republic, a root vegetable that's become harder to come by since the pandemic. Currently, over half of the population is struggling to find enough food to eat, and to tackle the problem, some entrepreneurs are looking for ways to ramp up cassava yields. Our correspondents report.
Sandy soil and daily rain make for perfect conditions for growing cassava in this field, located on the outskirts of the Central African capital. Joan is the manager of the first semi-industrial operation in the country. But because of the lack of budget for mechanical investments, the harvest is still done manually. To find the precious tuber, you have to dig up the cassava tree.
Un bébé bien potelé. C'est ça. Un gros bébé.
Joan just got back to the Central African Republic after studying agronomy in China. The young entrepreneur now wants to help his country achieve food autonomy, a tricky challenge.
We still have to import a massive amount, unfortunately. Our needs are estimated at 900,000 tons of cassava, but we can't even make half.
A few meters away from the field, his employees peel, cut and wash the cassava before drying it in the sun.
We harvest what we can and we keep the rest for the next day. We can produce 5 or 10 tons per week. That's already very good. While waiting for the machines, we try to do our best.
The flour for the dough and the leaves for the sauce are then put into packages, ready for use.
Voilà, alors là, nous le vendons sur le marché à 500 francs CFA.
It is higher than the market price, but the company claims better product quality. It also has the ambition to find new use for cassava. Like turning the peelings into animal feed.
The goal is to reduce costs because corn is very expensive and cassava is full of energy. The animals like it. They're very fat, as you can see.
On the continent, cassava is the cheapest and easiest food to produce. Its intensive production could help offset the risk of famine in the Central African Republic.
And finally, Abidjan is in the midst of massively overhauling infrastructure, including the construction of a new metro system. But the plans have already come at a human cost. Communities living along the route have been moved out, and many say they have nowhere to go and have not been given any of the planned compensation from the state.
In the neighborhood of Abobo, these demolished walls will soon be replaced by the metro of Abidjan. In August, hundreds of people saw their house destroyed. Fazouman Sila is one of them.
Here was the terrace, the living room, from here to there.
Authorities had discussions about the community impact of the project, and most locals agreed to give up their homes in exchange for compensation. But Fazoumana says officials didn't hold up their side of the agreement.
We should have been compensated before being evacuated, but our house has been destroyed, and now we're waiting. It's a really hard situation.
The situation is not unique. In the nearby neighborhood of Anyama, others claim to have gone through the same ordeal. A local NGO has spent years advocating for those who have lost their homes to construction projects in Abidjan. He says that vulnerable residents are likely to fall further into poverty.
They haven't only lost their homes, but also their source of income, because their home was where they made their money.
The Colombivoire organization says that 3 out of 10 people made homeless by the project have been compensated. The government says it's making progress.
In Anyama, we're doing very well. In Abobo, we've done more than 50%. The project in Adjamé is also going forward. But if you have to wait until the last resident leaves the neighborhood before beginning to demolish, well, in 3 years, nothing would have been done.
The government's determined to have the metro constructed by 2025. According to the officials, this project will lead to the destruction of more than 9,000 homes.
Thank you for watching Across Africa, and stay with us on France 24.